Hello and welcome back to the show. Today I have my good friend Brett with me. Welcome to the show, Brett. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, Garrett?
Yeah, good. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I know we've known each other for a bit. I know you're in the trades of construction, so it's nice to talk to someone that has experience in the field as well as doing on the development side too. So
Yeah.
so just for those who don't know Brett, Brett has 17 years experience in grading, excavation, and paving. He spent 10 years as a foreman working on heavy highway projects and is currently running heavy equipment for a company called MDB Construction in Southern California. Man, it's a lot. So just for those who don't really know much about like what grading and paving is, can you explain more like what is that and what kind of services that entails?
Well, grading kind of covers anything to do with any kind of engineering, right? So you're going to use heavy equipment to grade dirt. You're going to use heavy equipment to move dirt. That really grading kind of covers everything from freeways to house pads to whatever, big giant buildings, foundations. Foundations would fall like more under excavation and stuff like that, but grading's just kind of like generally what we call it in the trades.
I see. So if you do grading, then you also do like paving, or is it other services sometimes like separate?
Paving is separate, but we do work hand in hand, obviously, because of the specs. You know, you got to have a certain thickness on your paving, right? So the grading's got to be on the money before they pave.
Mhm.
And our tolerance is really small. It's 500ths of a foot. So, I mean, we're talking like that much. You got to have, I mean, the grading's got to be there. So that's what makes your road smooth, the grading. If you pave something over some grading that is not done very well, then you're going to have bumps in your road.
How can one mess up on that? Because don't you guys just usually get a tractor and just like,
Well, not every crew is what you would call like the A team, or you know what I mean.
yeah.
It depends on like I've noticed over the years sometimes with these bigger companies, everybody's just a number, and they'll hire whoever because they got a big job to cover. So in my experience, the smaller crews, the smaller companies, they're more detail oriented and tend to do a better job. But that's not to say that these bigger companies don't have good operators. They do, but it's a mix.
Do you have any recommendations on questions we should be asking to vet to see if they are the A team or not? Maybe not quite the A team.
Honestly, I would just ask for a resume. Ask
Mhm.
what projects they've worked on. You could, obviously experience goes a long way. Leadership experience too. If they're a foreman or higher superintendent, they usually are, your top tier operators that will do a good job. So yeah, basically it just boils down to experience. Sometimes the work is schedule driven and sometimes the work is budget driven. If you have the money in the budget and you can take your time and do a good job, then that's, you know, typically you'll get a better product. So it just depends.
How long does it usually take for grading to get done on like a typical like say single family house or so?
If you're doing like a roadway,
Hmm.
a roadway could take typically in a day. If you're pretty close to grade already, your finished grade,
Yeah.
you can knock out probably 60,000 square feet in one shift, like an 8-hour shift with the right equipment. If you have enough room,
Hmm.
if you're, you know, uh, have like a shorter roadway, like a more narrow roadway,
Hmm.
you don't have the room to get certain equipment in there to move dirt. It could drastically change your production. So you might not even get half of that with like a skip loader. With house pads, everything depends on, from start to finish. Usually you're going to have an overX, and that's all determined by the soils report, what type of material you have on the lot. the like for instance, I did a house in Banning a couple months ago, and when I started to do the overX, there was nothing but cobblestone in there. So it required an overX, and the lot was really small.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a skip loader. It's like a small tractor with a Gannon for grading, and it's really hard to grade with all those giant rocks in there. So these rocks were like anywhere from 6 inches. Some of them were 2 feet in diameter, like just a huge mix of different like cobblestones. So we ended up having to remove all that dirt, truck it out. We had to export it and then import new good dirt. So the contractor that hired me to do that didn't really, he was cutting corners, didn't get a soils report. I don't know how he got a no grading permit. It was baffling, but he got it. So when I showed up, he thought it was just going to be like a wham bam job. And I'm like, dude, you can't, how are you going to dig your utilities through all this rock and stuff? Like, it's not going to work. How are you going to get compaction? So the job ended up, I did it in 2 days, 2 8-hour shifts, but it really should have been
1 day.
1 day. Yeah. Without importing anything or exporting anything. But yeah. So
when should someone get a soils report?
A soils report, you can go directly to like a soils tech, like a company that does it, or usually like your engineer, whoever your engineer is, the guy that's going to draw up all your grading and drainage plans, they know people, or from what I've seen, a lot of them have the same, like either they do it in-house, like they have a soils guy, or they have recommendations for other soils guys.
So in that last example with that GC, so did you knew you needed to do more just because like you got to the site and then you started digging and then you found it, right? It wasn't like you got to the site.
Yeah. So he hired me. Just it's actually a friend of mine, but he was like, "Hey, I need some grading done, like real quick. Like, let me come over to this lot." And that was like on a Friday, and he wanted it done on a Saturday. And as soon as I went over there, I just told him, I'm like, bro, this is not going to work. But he had a no grading permit. So he just wanted me to grade it. And I was like, dude, you need to do an overX. Like, you can't just build your foundation. Like, I can't just knock it down and make it smooth, and then you pour a foundation on it. You got to dig your utilities and all this. And this is his first project that he did from the ground up. He usually does like remodels and stuff. But so that, I mean, I didn't charge him anything. I just charged him an hourly rate just for my wages, and he paid for everything else. But he definitely didn't expect it to be that. He didn't expect it to be that much work. And like I said, I don't know how he got a no grade permit. Like I don't know. The guys in Banning just aren't paying attention. The city inspectors, I guess.
Interesting. So when can you get a no grade permit? It's just when it's like just basically a flat.
Usually, yeah, if the property is already flat, or maybe it's being sold like as already having been graded and overX and all that. So you don't need a grading permit because it's already been done. But I mean, I've never really heard of that in Southern California, especially. I've heard of that like out of state, like you don't even need permits to build a house. Like you just build one.
Yeah, it's the Wild West out there. Here we're definitely more
California.
Yeah, I know you mentioned
I
like
said it.
how do you guys usually price out your projects? Is it usually just go price per square foot or like an hourly rate?
Well, for me, like I don't have my I don't have a license, right? So if like in my buddy's case where I did that project for him, I just gave him a round number, like I'll do it for $2,000. And then and that was like supposed to be, in and out one day. And then I saw, he had some financial issues. So I was like, dude, just pay me wages. You spent like 3 times as much money as he should have trying to get around, cut corners. So I hooked him up But to answer your question, it just depends. Like the over-X, some soils you need a deeper over-X, so
Mhm.
you could move twice as much dirt as you could on something that doesn't need an over-X, right? So there's a price on moving the dirt, which is usually charged by the square yard. Most companies, they just, they have engineers do that stuff. I've never bid projects like that big,
Mhm.
but I know what it takes to move dirt. Dirt's pretty easy to move.
Mhm.
So if you have the right equipment, so I don't know. People like to complicate it, but I don't. It's a house pad is one day's worth of work, and you can do a pretty big house pad in one day.
Mhm.
So you got to have proper water. Water truck will cost you like probably $600 to $700 a day. A skip loader is $700 a day. If you need an excavator now, like if you're doing a real deep over-X, excavators, I've never even had to rent an excavator to do an over-X, so I couldn't tell you how much they cost.
Mhm.
But that'll move dirt really quick though. That'll get your job done quick.
So do we have to have the water meter in place in order for you guys to grade it, or?
Oh yeah, when you get your permit, you all of that is kind of lumped into it. So once you get your permit, you go to the water district or whoever's in charge. Sometimes it could be city water or whatever. We have a private water district in my town.
Mhm.
And you just go get a water meter. If it's down the street on big projects, they'll run water to the project, and usually you have a tower. So the water truck will just pull under it. He pulls a cord, and it just dumps water into the truck, fills up really quick. If you got to go to, but to answer your question, yeah, the meter's always hooked up. You need a meter because they're going to charge you for that water.
When's a good time to call the grader to come out and do their thing?
Well, they're going to want to do a site, like walk the site at least once. They'll usually have someone come out and clear and grub everything first. But I mean, if you got your permits, you're ready to rock. Like we're the first ones in. They'll put up their silt fence or whatever for all their stormwater prevention. It's called SWEPS. It's a program, stormwater prevention or stormwater protection prevention program or something like that. And basically, so you're not, there's no runoff on your job, like of mud or anything like that. So you'll come in, you're clear and grub everything, and then they'll set up their silt fence, they'll set up their construction fence, and then you're ready to grade. So
Are there any like considerations when you're doing like sloped properties? Because some properties have like a little more incline at some part of it, or.
yeah. So it depends. There's what they call a cut slope,
Mhm.
which is when you're cutting down the mountain or cutting down a hill, or there's a fill slope. Like if there's a terrace lot, like if you have a lot down here and say you're going to build like I don't know, build a detached garage up on your property up on the hill or whatever. So you have the room to lose dirt or to balance the dirt out, you might build like a higher elevated house pad or something. So you have a fill slope and you have a cut slope.
Mhm.
So on a cut slope, it's easy. There's no compaction. You're just cutting it down. It's natural grade. On a fill slope, you have to get compaction all the way up. You got to get water into it, everything. So you could build a slope or you can cut a slope.
When should someone get a compaction report?
Um, Usually like when you do, okay, so when you do your over-X, you'll have to get a compaction. It depends on the city, but typically in California, every foot. So if you have a 5 foot over-X, so
Mhm.
you'll dig down 5 foot below your finished grade, and then you'll put a 1 foot lift in. So you'll backfill with 1 foot of dirt. You'll
Mhm.
compact it, and then the soils tech will take a test every foot. So he'll take a total of 5 tests coming up.
So 5 tests, no matter how big the lot is, typically, or is it like?
Well, no, if there's a 5 foot over-X,
Got it. Okay.
right? So some people will they only or some cities, I guess you should say, only require like a 3 foot
Mhm.
over-X. But it all depends on the soils report. Like if you're in sand, it's like usually a pretty pretty deep overheads.
Thing, so you're having more compaction then and all that.
Yeah. Mm.
Because I know part of like since my property is in a flood zone, we have to import more dirt. Where do you guys usually get like dirt from? Where do you use
Your truckers,
truckers?
they haul everything. So your truckers will know where dirt is because the contractors around the area, they'll they'll call the trucking company and say, I got 10,000 yards of dirt to move.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the truckers will be like, okay, well, we'll come get the dirt. And then they'll look for a place to either stockpile it
Mm-hmm.
or they'll look for another job to unload it. Right. So if there's a job that needs dirt and a job that needs to get rid of dirt, that's how they do it. They coordinate it like that. And if there's a lot of export on a job, they'll stockpile it. They'll try to find somewhere to stockpile it, construction yard or wherever, property owners, they'll stockpile it there. But typically, the best way to do it is if there's another job site close by that's getting rid of dirt. That's the way you want to do it. It saves a lot of money on trucking.
Are there any other reports that you guys need to use in order to do your guys' jobs effectively? Because I know you guys mentioned soils report, you guys mentioned action report. Are there any others?
Let me see. Soils report. Obviously, you need grading and drainage plans approved by the city. Soils report, utilities. I mean, you got to have utilities. But I mean, the grading, usually the GC takes care of that. Like, as a grading guy, I don't have to deal with none of that stuff because the GC is the one that's got to take care of all that.
So when it comes to putting like asphalt and all that, because sometimes the city, depending on how big your project is, you have to put in a road. What does it take to do all that kind of stuff? Do you go through extra permitting and?
I wouldn't say so. Yeah, no, the I don't think so. To be honest, I couldn't tell you. I would assume the GC would have to take care of all that too. You just show up and pave. So a lot of the things that these contractors are doing these days is they're paper contractors is what they've been called, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the license and then they just sub everything out. They already have the permits, they already have everything. Yeah, as a dirt guy, you have to have a license too to be able to do the work, or you can work under the GC's license because he has the license that covers all of it. So me, I don't have my contractor's license. So, but that's why I'm cheap. Like if somebody wants me to do a side job, I just charge them wages or like a flat fee, and they pay for the equipment, they pay for the water truck, they pay for the water meter, all that stuff. I don't deal with none of that.
Interesting. When you get to, because I already mentioned the first things you typically do is to get on site, just get the site check it out. What's going through your mind when you get to site? Like, what are some questions as well?
The first question that I ask if I'm just doing the dirt is I want to see the soils report. I want to see what equipment. The reason I'm walking the site is because I want to see what equipment I'm going to use, what size equipment I need to use to be the most effective at moving the dirt, and how deep the overheads, how much yardage I'm moving. That's what I'm looking for. And like I said, the GC, he takes care of all that, like all the other stuff, permits and everything else.
How does it factor in when you have like trees and stuff like that? Is it
trees? Okay, so typically on the plans, like all the trees, when they do the survey, all those trees are called out and they do the grading and drainage plans. The engineer will decide, okay, this tree's got to go. And then, like where I live in Yucaipa, California, there's a lot of oak trees and they're protected. So like if you buy a lot in Yucaipa, you don't want any oak trees on it, or you want them maybe at the back of the property or something, because you're not going to be able to move those trees. So but yeah, if there's tree, that's all in the engineering plans, the tree removal and everything. And I don't remove trees. Call an arborist. I ain't climbing up with a chainsaw and cut no tree.
Because I know, do you have to like when you're actually grading, do you have to stay like a certain distance from certain trees? Because I know some trees have like their roots are more closer to the surface, so I know their roots
Yeah.
average. Do you guys have to like consider that kind of thing too?
Yeah, if you have to protect that tree. Oh, here's another issue too is like migratory birds, and wildlife. So that's what comes, that could be another reason why trees would be protected. But anyway, sorry, I got off track a little bit. Yeah, the trees, like if they're supposed to stay and you have to overex a certain area, usually you can work with the inspector and just say, hey, look, I'm not going to undermine this tree. It's going to fall. So let's protect it. Let's dig around it. Let's not dig those roots up. Or sometimes it doesn't even matter. It's a strong tree. So it's like, yeah, go ahead and dig the roots up. It just depends on the inspector really, and what kind of tree it is and everything like that.
That's interesting. And last but not least, how can one get in touch with you to learn more about your services?
Well, you can call me at 760-217-1144 or email me at barbour30@gmail.com. And Barbour spelled BARBOUR 30@gmail.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your knowledge, man. It's so good to really dive deeper into what you do because I know there's not really much information out there about what you do, what your services entail. So it's nice to see like, oh, this is what it actually entails so that you can be more informed going into a development project.
Awesome. Yeah. Good luck, everybody, with your projects. And if you need any help with your grading, let me know.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.